Why don't you fear death? Story 1. I only fear a long, painful one. I don't fear what after. It's gotta be either nothingness or everythingness. That's exactly how I feel. If anything, I'm afraid of dying and the pain that comes with it. I'm afraid of being picked apart until there is no I left. I don't fear what's after. I guess that's why they say passing in your sleep is preferable. You are only really aware that you were sleeping after you wake up, so if you never wake up, you are no really worse off. Story 2. One of the reasons MAID is such a blessing. My FIL died last week via MAID after a brutal resurgence of his cancer that knocked his ability to do much without needing to be in a hospital bed on 4 anti-nausea meds. Had a chance to sort out his affairs, gather his family, have a few days playing some games and watching cartoons with us and the kids, his grandkids. The last night we hung out, shot the crap, told jokes, listened to his favorite music, and then the time came for the scheduled cocktail of meds and he was ready. Fell asleep after we sung a lullaby and just didn't wake up. Went on his own terms, peacefully after a decent time with his family next to him. No terror. Just calm. A good end, truly. Story 3. Because I have no control over it and no reason to think it's unpleasant. Indeed. I'm not actively seeking it, and while there are life choices I would have made differently given the chance, I'm not going to allow myself to be burdened with regret if death approaches. I came from nothing, I'll return to nothing. Studying history, in any given period of time, there are only a few hundred people of notability out of millions of humans. My insignificance to the passage of time or progress of humanity bothered me when I was younger, but I've come to peace that given the laws of probability, I was always more likely to be among the marginal millions, billions, than the notable few. Moreover, I made a conscious choice that what it takes to be among the notable few would compromise my interests and values too much. I'd have to give up family, passions, ethics, or something else I hold dear. Story 4. I have stage 4 breast cancer. I was diagnosed 7 years ago and have been in treatment ever since. I don't want to die, and I hope that I keep defying the odds as I should have been gone 5 years ago. I do, however, see death as the reward for enduring this life. I have to believe that when it does come for me, that when the act of dying is over, that I for once in my life I am finally at peace, pain-free, and rested. Because of my experiences, I do believe in reincarnation, but I really hope that this is the end of my series of coming back. I am just so tired. Story 5. My mom passed away unexpectedly in 2022. I'm looking forward to death as I won't have to be in this world without her anymore. If you can't tell, we were very close and miss her with everything in me. Plus, there's only a few things guaranteed in life, and death is one. I have no control over it, so I'm chugging along hoping and trying to be the best person I can be. I feel like I'm failing half the time, but I'm still going. Story 6. Look at the world we inhabit. If I was religious, which I'm not, I would be fully convinced I'm in bad place. At best, purgatory or limbo. Life is a prison for the mind, body, and soul. We are all wage slaves to oligarchs. Death is the only guaranteed relief I have. I would never commit ended my life, but I am actively looking forward to the moment I don't have to put up with this nonsense anymore. Story 7. The philosophical chestnut that where we are, death is not, where death is, we are not. As far as I know, most of the universe is matter without awareness. I'm a tiny chunk of it that got to be conscious and aware for an infinitesimal fraction of time. This seems like a tremendous opportunity. The fact that it's not going to last forever, again, as far as I know, seems like no reason for dissatisfaction. Story 8. I don't fear death necessarily. Though I hope it's not a painful one. Or a long drawn-out stay in a hospital bed. No one is positive that there's something after this, but I do believe there's more to this life than we can ever comprehend. Is that me believing in something after this? Perhaps. But I'm mostly scared of just not existing. Life is really hard. Mentally, emotionally, physically. But I don't take it for granted. There's so many things I want to do and experience. I want to cram as much as I can into this small fragile existence. So that one day when I am close to inevitable death, and I'm aware that it's close, I can have peace in looking back on the wonderful life I created for myself and the memories I shared with loved ones. Story 9. I don't fear death because Jesus Christ promises eternal life if we believe in Him. I hope you do the same, my friend, but I understand people have different beliefs. I also understand it's hard to believe in something you can't physically see. I have doubts too sometimes, but the historical evidence points to Jesus being a real person and not just a man but God in human form. What evidence do you have that supports what you are living for? Ask yourself that question and wonder if it has more evidence than Jesus Christ. I am almost certain it does not. I hope you find the truth, my friend, because that's all I try to do as well. All glory to God, and may you find peace. Story 10. In my opinion, it's going to be like it was before I was born. I won't even know I'm gone. It's kinda like the quote from Epicurus. Death is nothing to us. When we exist, death is not, and when death exists, we are not. All sensation and consciousness ends with death, and therefore in death there is neither pleasure nor pain. The fear of death arises from the belief that in death, there is awareness. Story 11. I don't fear death because it's the ultimate reminder of life's value. Knowing that our time is finite gives meaning to every fleeting moment, every connection, and every achievement. Death isn't an end to fear but a horizon to embrace. It's what makes life precious. Instead of fearing it, I choose to focus on living fully, leaving behind love, kindness, and memories that echo beyond my time. After all, it's not the length of life that matters but the depth with which it's lived. Story 12. As an ICU nurse, I deal with death all the time. I'm more scared of what people will do to keep you alive than actually dying. Additionally, as a practicing Muslim, we all came from God and to Him we shall return. This life is just a test. It's just temporary. The afterlife is forever. What's written for you is done. When it's your time, it's your time. That's not to say this life is meaningless. Many suffer in this life. Many have blessings. It's all a test to see how grateful you will be to the Creator for what's given to you. We are told be kind, give to the less fortunate, cherish those around you, protect women/children, stand up for justice. Even if you're not Muslim, these are not mutually exclusive to Islam. I've noticed most religions all agree on these things. One person alone won't change the world, but millions standing for a cause can. Millions being good can bring change. Be part of the good in this life. And pray you will be rewarded in the afterlife. Story 13. Death is the only thing that isn't my problem. You know what devastates the heart? Losing someone you love. Me dying means I finally don't have to suffer more losses like that. I'm worried about the people who rely on me. I'm the one everyone turns to in crises. But I've worked hard on teaching them how to learn for themselves if they ever need to. Story 14. I fear losing myself, but the pain of life has always been too great for me, and when you're suicidal since 8 years old due to not being accepted for who you are and being forced to repress and lose yourself, you kinda stop caring. I don't want to lose myself, but sometimes, death sounds nicer than continuing to suffer in this sad life my dad forced me into when he couldn't accept me for who I was and condemned me and forced me to lose important years, basically almost every year of my life. Story 15. 'Cause it's a reward for a life well lived. Peace, quiet, rest, the sweet nothing of not existing. Free of burdens, responsibilities. No, I'm fine, I'm not eager for death and don't need to talk to someone. I just have a very pragmatic view of life after a childhood defined by death. I may not fear the Reaper, but I'm not inviting him in any time soon, that's for sure, lol. Story 16. I believe in the continuity of the soul, though I have no definition for that word at the moment. I believe that the universe is built on consciousness, and when we die, many different things can happen to the part of that infinite consciousness that is ours, and a lot of that outcome is up to us. I fully expect death to be a really fun adventure in the astral realm for me before moving on to be reincarnated or reabsorbed into the infinite consciousness. And if I'm wrong, and there's nothing, then I won't notice anyway. If I'm wrong and there's heaven and hell, then I'll be vindicated in that the Judeo-Christian God is a crap. Story 17. This is a quote from a wise man named Anthony de Mello. Dying is wonderful, it's only horrible to people who have never understood life. It's only when you're afraid of life that you fear death. It's only gone people who fear death. I've been practicing therapy for 9 years and provided hospice care for a year before that. I've yet to meet anyone who is actually afraid of death, only people who are afraid of living and suffering or not having a life they feel worthy to have lived. Story 18. I was the 5th person to have congenital heart surgery at 1 year old. In 1969 I was given 10 years to survive at the most. I'm now the last of the mustard kid. At 10 years old the Make-A-Wish granted me my dream wish, so in 1979 my wish was filled and my family went to America Disneyland in most of the east coast of America. I'm now 55, so every day of my life since I was 10 is another blessing I have experienced, so the fear of death never has been an issue for me. I'm still really happy and have had a blessed life with very few regrets. Thank you letting me express my thoughts. Love all you beautiful people. Story 19. First, I don't have any control over it. Everyone born before a certain time is gone already. Next thing, I sometimes think about living forever. I wouldn't like it, particularly getting old and some of the changes to the world. I don't want to be around for it. I went back home recently and so many people I knew have passed away. I love the younger generation. I wish we were giving them a better world, but they will have to make a lot of drastic changes. The last 30 years have done a lot of damage. Story 20. I don't fear it anymore because after my last remaining grandmother died and on the first anniversary of her death, she and my grandfather visited me in my dreams. It wasn't a dream but a visit from them. It has different feelings and I can tell that I am not dreaming. They told me that they had been watching me and they will be waiting for me when it is my time. They were religious, but I am spiritual, and for them to now know and they are okay, I'm no longer worried. I also know that my dad and youngest brother will mow down the people will be there. Honestly, I will probably mow some people down to get to them. Story 21. I once applied for a job as a deputy coroner. Part of the interview process was seeing an autopsy. I went on what happened to be my 29th birthday. The guy that we were viewing had died in a freak accident the day before. He had pulled over for some unknown reason in the middle of the freeway and was in the trunk or the back seat of his car, reports varied. Traffic was backing up, and someone swerved to miss a stopping car and they slammed right into the back of him, ending him. He was 28. A year younger than I was turning that day. I thought about how if you had asked him 24 hours ago what he'd be doing, he wouldn't have said he'd be cut open on a table in front of a bunch of strangers. It really made me rethink the concept of death and dying. That guy wasn't sick. He wasn't expecting it. He just has an unfortunate, possibly stupid, moment that took his life. I realized it doesn't do any good to fear death. When it's your time, it's your time. Whether you believe it's fate, God, the universe, or something else, we really have no control. There's enough crap to worry about in the world. Story 22. I don't have any control over it. That doesn't mean I purposefully go seeking it out. But one day, I will die somehow, and I can't control that. I'm not suicidal, far from it. I'm thankful and happy to be alive. But I've made my peace with death. I just hope that it will be peaceful and at the end of a long, fruitful life. Besides, I believe that there is something more after death, and I'm rather curious to find what it may be. Though I can certainly wait to learn. Story 23. As I understand, it can come in many forms. We generally fear death at the very end, but life can be cut short at any given moment, and around the world, it does. Death spares no one at any age, and it can be in any form. You can get crushed to death, in an accident, smothered, shot in the head, long agonizing illnesses, famine, disease, heart attack, stroke. You can be stabbed to death, blown up, ripped apart, tortured to death. Death has many forms that can happen and has happened to all age groups in various gruesome ways. I can't speak for anyone else, and I can only speak for myself literally this far. Deserving or not, I'm thankful that I have not yet experienced those deaths in their many forms and I live for whatever reason. I could have very well been one of those deaths and am beyond grateful that I haven't met my demise like that so far. Story 24. I'm a lot more mentally okay and happy generally, but what I really fear is more suffering, not death. Like becoming more disabled or something that is less temporary suffering and more, things getting worse long term. Death is just an inevitable thing that has to happen sometime. When it happens, it's not like I'm gonna remember it and suffer from it. The temporary suffering of dying, if any, will never be a new source of pain like the way PTSD or physical injuries are. All my suffering will be forgotten. I want more life nowadays, and I don't want my loved ones to hurt. I work hard in many ways to stay alive and have a good life, but when it actually happens, it's simply going to be over and nothing bad will happen again after that, no memories or anything, just nothing. That can be terrifying to contemplate sometimes, but other times it's a relief, and again, it is inevitable. Story 25. The first significant loss in my life was my grandma. She was my best friend. So loving and accepting of everyone, never let one day go by without telling me how much she loved me. When she passed away, it changed my whole entire viewpoint on life after death. She was so pure and so full of life, and energy like that doesn't just cease to exist. So now, I truly believe that there is something better after we pass on. It might just be my mind clinging to that to help me cope with her loss, but either way, it's helped me make peace with death myself and it doesn't scare me anymore.